We're on the heels of UFC 263, and I'm joined by UFC President Dana White, who's in the UFC war room, and we've got a war on our hands this weekend. Marvin Vettori getting a rematch against Israel Adesanya, and I saw the first fight recently, and that looked like a totally different Marvin Vettori. I feel like people are underestimating this guy going into this, especially from a matchup standpoint. Do you feel like from a matchup standpoint, he's the toughest one for Adesanya in the division?
Yeah, I do. If you look at the first fight, like you said, it was a very, very close fight, and Vettori isn't even. Neither one of them are that fight. Are the same fighter. They've both gotten better. So I expect an absolute war on Saturday night. I'm excited about this fight.
If Vettori does win, he'll be the first Italian champion in UFC history. What does that market mean to the UFC?
Yeah, I don't know yet. Obviously, I don't really know. There's tons of Italian Americans in the United States and tons of Italians around the world. So, we'll see how they support their own if Marvin Vettori should win this fight. I know Lorenzo Fertitta's excited for it.
Yeah, a lot of Italian Americans.
An Italian champion for 20 years.
Italian people will always gravitate towards, if you look at how much they love Italy in the Euro Cup and in the World Cup, there's parades.
So true.
So with this particular matchup, you look at what Jan Blachowicz did to Israel, and it's kind of a similar skill set to Marvin Vettori. Do you think that Marvin learned something and took something away from that fight?
I don't know. I don't know. I think we can't underestimate how hard it is to move up a weight class. It's when you move up a weight class in this sport, it's not like moving up 1 or 2 pounds. I mean, these guys move up, big weight. So it's very hard to do, and you can't judge him on this fight after his last fight. You just can't do it.
Now I want to ask you about two other middleweights. I'll start off with Robert Whittaker. I spoke to Marvin Vettori last week, and I watched an old interview with Vettori before Gastelum fought Whittaker. And in the interview, he said, I'm going to fight Israel next because Robert Whittaker doesn't want to fight Israel. Now, I don't know how true that is, but we do know that Whittaker turned the fight down. Where does he stand in your eyes in the middleweight division?
Now, it's not that Whittaker didn't want to fight Israel. He wants to fight Israel. He wants to get a shot at the title again. It's just timing-wise, you know how Whittaker is, man. When Whittaker's one of these guys that, when something's going on in his personal life that he has to deal with, he deals with it. A lot of other people put personal stuff on the back burner to get in there and fight.
Yeah, and a lot of sacrifices he's made for his family in the previous years that I don't think a lot of people know much about.
Yeah. He's the number one guy in the world. That's not going to change during this fight, and whoever wins, Whittaker will be next. But in no way, shape, or form is Whittaker not trying to fight Israel Adesanya.
Now, the second middleweight I want to ask you about is Paulo Costa. He recently posted this on Twitter after it was announced that Kelvin Gastelum would be taking his place in an upcoming fight against Jared Cannonier. He wrote, UFC needs to pay me as a main fighter to have me fighting in main events. YouTubers are showing all disgrace to the business. Just to be clear, I have never signed or locked up that contract. Why the UFC announced this fight that I didn't sign, that's my question. How do you respond to that quote?
Yeah, I don't know I don't think that's true. I think he did sign because we extended him. We extended his contract for turning down the fight. But listen, don't fight. I have to offer you 3 fights a year. This is my situation with all these guys. I offer you 3 fights a year. He doesn't have to fight. No problem. Don't fight. Yeah. Guess what? You should have started a YouTube channel when you were 13 years old and built your name up and everything else, and you could have had the fight on Saturday night. But you didn't. You're not a YouTuber. You're a fighter, and this is what you do for a living. Or you don't. It's up to you. And you're in no position to be talking about crazy money after your last performance. Okay? So you either want to fight or you don't want to fight. No problem. You don't want to fight, you can hang out and do whatever you want. When you're ready, you let me know.
Well, that was going to be my next question. You've seen everything in this business, but does it ever surprise you that people come at you from this perspective when they're not really in a position of leverage, as you mentioned? I mean, he's coming off of a loss. He hasn't fought in some time.
It's not even a position of leverage. Listen, if that you signed a contract, you're under contract, that's the way you feel. Let me tell you what, you know what I say all the time. We have fights every weekend. And if you want to be busy, you know, you can fight every weekend if you want to. Get out of your contract and go do whatever you want to do. Go fight. You can go fight YouTubers. You can do whatever you want.
Well, when you say get out of your contract, would you let him out of his contract if that's what he wanted to do?
Sure, he can fight his way out of his contract. He has a contract.
So fight it out. I understand.
Their contracts just because they want, you know, they're mad that a YouTube kid is fighting and making money. You should be happy for the kid. Good for him. Kid put himself in a position to where he was able to fight Floyd Mayweather and make a bunch of money. You're mad? But you just came off a ridiculous, horrible performance. Come back and put yourself in a position to do something big.
We spoke back in December about Charles Oliveira and Tony Ferguson, and I said, man, I wish this was a 5-round fight. It's going to be dynamic. And it was dynamic, but it was only 3 rounds. You had mentioned at the time that you and the matchmakers had discussed having 5-round non-main event fights on pay-per-views. This one's not even the co-main event, but it's 5 rounds. We're getting 5 rounds of Nate Diaz taking on Leon Edwards. Going forward, is this going to be more regular, or is it kind of a wait-and-see approach based on this particular fight?
What's the question?
Diaz and Edwards, 5 rounds. We talked about this in December, about non-title fights being 5 rounds that weren't the main event on a pay-per-view. Is that something that you're looking to do more regularly?
I mean, listen, this was one of those, you know, they asked for it. They wanted to do it. Plus, you know, they got bounced around a couple times. Edwards has had the worst luck of anybody, you know, in the sport in the last year and a half. So we did it. I'm not saying I'm going to do it again, but I'm not saying I'm never going to do it again either.
The Ultimate Fighter is back, and a lot of people were talking about how they were hoping for a more dramatic pairing, I guess, for the coaches. But when I look at it from this perspective, Alexander Volkanovski, of all the champions in the UFC, is one of the guys that people don't know a whole lot about. But you look at his last 4 fights, Max Holloway twice, Chad Mendes, Jose Aldo, those are 3 of the 5 best featherweights of all time. Is part of the selection process for the coaches to have a new vehicle to promote them, to get the people at home to know them? I think in Volkanovski's case, that would be particularly needed for his division.
Well, it obviously does that, but what we're looking for is guys that can actually go in and, you know, mentor these kids, actually coach them, show them, who can actually make a difference in their careers. And you couldn't ask for 2 better guys than Ortega and Volkanovski. And, you know, yeah, there might not be, you know, the type of drama that you would get from, you know, maybe a Colby and an Usman, but I guarantee you the fight's going to be badass.
Now I'm going somewhere with this. Do you like burgers?
I love burgers.
All right. So hear me out on this. The Ultimate Fighter and the Contender series. I was asked about this last week, and the way that I compared them was, you've got the Ultimate Fighter is kind of like the Kraft burger. You know, it's made in front of you. You can choose your toppings, kind of customize it. And the Contender series is more like McDonald's or fast food. You know, you got the burgers on the conveyor belt. They're going through. Is that the upside of being on the Ultimate Fighter versus the Contender series? You get more of a spotlight for an entire season. As you mentioned, it's on the ticker on ESPN now for the Ultimate Fighter. And I think the Contender series probably will be as well. But you really get to be in the homes of the viewers for weeks on end where they get to know you. Is that what you believe to be the upside of being on the Ultimate Fighter?
100%. It's a deep dive into who these people are, how they're built, their personalities. You don't get to see any of that. No matter how good the feature is on the Contender series, you don't really get to know who these guys are. The Ultimate Fighter is there's nothing like it. I can't see the show ever being, dated or, where that show doesn't work. If you like fighting, if that's what you really like, I mean, there couldn't be a better show on for you to watch than The Ultimate Fighter. And I understand if you've been around for a while and you get burnt out on The Ultimate Fighter, oh, I've seen this, I've seen that. What's pretty crazy about it is every season, if you think of all the seasons that we've done, not just here, but internationally too, it's over 30-something seasons, right? Something different happens every season. Something unexpected happens, every single season. And the fights are good. The reality is usually good. I just don't see where the show. And if you think about the millions of people, that became UFC fans because of The Ultimate Fighter, it's always going to drag in new people that never even thought they would become fans of mixed martial arts.
Now, I want to ask you about Jon Jones. Richard Schaefer was announced to be, I guess, his counsel, so to speak, going forward in this business. Have you guys spoken to Richard Schaefer as of yet about the future of Jon Jones?
We did. He came in here last week.
Well, anything to share?
I'll leave that up to them.
So where would you say we're at this point in time?
Where we're at is Jon Jones came out and said he doesn't want to fight until next year anyway. So
okay, so this is on hold for now.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that when you were interviewed by Mike Swick last week, that Khamzat Chimaev was going to come in and talk to you guys. Has he arrived in Las Vegas as of yet?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be here this week. Is it this week? You know? Yeah, this week.
When do you expect him to come back, or are you going to talk to him about that, see what his health is like before you make that decision?
No, we're looking at like August.
Going back to the heavyweight division, Ngannou versus Lewis, is that booked as of yet for August?
Yeah, it's booked. No. We still have one thing that needs to be taken care of before the fight is signed, but that's the fight we're going with. Yeah. And
I think you had said you were looking at doing that in Houston.
Cameroon, I think right now.
Okay, so you need a signature.
We need Francis. Yeah, we're waiting for. Well, he could sign it in Cameroon, but we're waiting for Francis to come home.
And you're expecting that to be in Derek Lewis's backyard in Houston?
Yeah.
And finally, yesterday, we had a boxing exhibition, I guess they called it, between Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. Did you get a chance to watch it? And if so, what were your thoughts walking away from it?
I didn't, but I heard about it. I heard it went the distance. These guys figured out how to get people to pay $50 for it, and good for them. There's always when you put on these kind of fights. I said this to you guys before. I'll say it. There's always going to be a market for these type of fights. Imagine if Kim Kardashian wanted to fight Amanda Nunes. How fucking big do you think that fight would be? It'd be crazy.
I mean, I don't want to know. I know how that one would go, unfortunately, but I don't think they're going to book that one. But I do understand what you're saying. Everybody would want to watch it.
Exactly. There's always going to be a market for those type of fights, and if you can pull them off and get people to pay $50 for them, good for you. It's not what I do. It's not the business that I'm in.
It's sometimes hard for me to rationalize because on Saturday I watched Ponzinibbio versus Baeza, and it's one of the best fights of the year. And then I watch that, and I think, why are so many more people interested in this than the real stuff versus, I guess, whatever that is.
But it's not. You don't. I shouldn't say you don't pull in the real fight fans, because some fight fans do turn in to see that. But that's where you get more of the you got like soccer moms and shit tuning in to see that kind of stuff, and. Whenever I put on an event, the last thing I want is fans turning off the TV going, that sucked. I can't believe they got me for $50 for that, blah, 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 blah. It's not the kind of events that I put on.
Well, I'll tell you, this Saturday, I have a feeling we're not going to see that. We've got a great main event, Israel Adesanya against Marvin Vettori. The co-main event, Davis and Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. I forgot to ask you about that one, and I can't wait for that one. I think that Moreno's got an upper hand in that one because he's already felt Davis and Figueiredo's power. This guy's one of the most fearsome guys that we've ever seen in the flyweight division. Having felt that power, I feel like he's going to have a bit of a mental edge.
That's a very good point, too. But on the flip side, Figueiredo had to cut weight twice. Really, really close, and I think that affected him in that first fight too. So we'll see how this thing plays out. But either way, that's going to be a badass fight.
And apparently had food poisoning. Is that true?
That I don't know. Did he have food poisoning? Yeah, he did have food poisoning, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to that. And, of course, Nate Diaz coming back, facing Leon Edwards. 5-round fight. Looking forward to that one as well. Dana, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, buddy.